Welcome in everyone, this is Sean with MTG808 Jr. and today we're going to be taking a look at the rest of the Dominaria spoilers. The full spoiler dropped a couple days ago, so we're going to be going over the standard Pauper standouts that we did not cover in our first video. We'll leave a link to that first video in the description. Before we jump into that though, just want to make sure everyone is aware of our Youth Championship Scholarship Tournament coming up this May. May 12th over at Dirtle Zone in IAEA. It's $5 to enter, $750 in scholarship prizes, $500 to first and $250 to second place. And it's going to be our second Standard Pauper tournament with Dominaria legal. So you're in the right place to get a leg up on the format. Pre-releases are next weekend, releases the weekend after that, and then we have one tournament over at Westside on May 6th with Dominaria Legal, and then we jump straight into the scholarship tournament with Dominaria. So, if you want to understand the format, you should start playing with these new cards. So, we're just going to jump in here. Again, the website that we're going to be using here is Mythic Spoiler. I really like the layout that they have for all the cards. Again, there's some spicy rares and mythics in the set. Even some of the uncommons are really nice. A lot of the legends are uncommon, but again, we're going to be focusing on just the standard Pauper playables, so the commons down here further down the list, and we're just going to jump into it. So here we've got Coldwater Snapper. 6 mana for a 4/5 hexproof. Hexproof has proven to be one of the more powerful keywords in Standard Pauper, with Bastion Inventor and Jade Guardian both seeing lots of play. However, and the other one is Striped Riverwinder. That's the 7 mana 5/5 hexproof with cycling that the control decks are playing. I don't think that this guy is going to go into any existing decks. However, once Striped Riverwinder leaves the format in the fall, we could see Coldwater Snapper being the control deck's finisher of choice. So, likely not to see play currently in any decks that we know of, but it's good to keep it on the radar. Anytime there's a hexproof creature, it's good to just be aware of it. So Coldwater Snapper, keep your eye on it. Next up, we've got Artificer's Assistant. It's a 1 blue mana for a 1/1 flyer. That's pretty good, especially if you're a blue aggressive deck. And if you've been following the channel, you know that I've built quite a few blue aggressive decks in this Standard Pauper format. And this ability goes really well with it slots right into the blue aggressive decks that we've designed so far. It says whenever you cast a historic spell, scry 1. Artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are historic, right? So you have to actually cast the spell. It won't trigger off of like an Aether Swooper trigger making a servo, but if you cast an artifact, then you get to scry 1. So that includes all of your equipment, your Honkopeshes, your Inventor's Goggles, any artifact creatures that you play. And, even if you don't get this ability, just having this in the same deck as all of those equipments means that you have a 1 mana evasive body that you can equip the equipments to. So this guy is very solid. I'm eager to try this guy out in the blue aggressive decks. So Artificer's Assistant, very solid card. All right, moving on to black. Stronghold Confessor. I am very excited about this card. This might be the black card that I'm most excited for the format. It's a 1 mana 1/1 with Menace, and you can pay the kicker. Again, remember, keep in mind, if the spell has kicker and it's fine on the front end without the kicker, and then it's slightly better with the kicker, then it's likely going to see play. So this card, 1 mana 1/1 Menace. In some other formats that might not be an exciting creature, but in Standard Pauper, where we've seen just these hyper aggressive aggro decks with playing as many 1 mana creatures that they can, this guy is going to be very solid. So he's going to run past a lot of blockers, get chip damage in if you play him on turn 1. He wears equipment really well, he crews vehicles, and then if you draw him in the later game, you pay an additional 3 mana, and he comes in with 2+1/+1 counters. So in the early game, he's a 1/1 menace. In the late game, he is a 3/3 menace. So just all around, very solid card. I'm going to be very surprised if this guy does not see play in the black aggro decks. Alright, another very solid 3-drop for black decks. This might top the curve of the aggro decks, or it might just be in kind of more mid-rangey black decks, but the control decks might even want to play this. So it's a 3 mana, 3/2. When Deathborn Thallid dies, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token, right? So it comes in, it can trade with a creature, and then it leaves behind a creature that can potentially trade with something else or, serve as a chump blocker. So anytime that you get extra value out of your creatures, you want to keep an eye on it. So Deathborn Thallid will probably be a player in a number of decks. All right, Eviscerate is 3 and a black for a sorcery, destroy target creature. We've seen Impale and Daring Demolition see a little bit of play in Standard Pauper. Daring Demolition is probably just strictly better than Impale and Eviscerate. You are paying the extra black over Eviscerate, but you do have the option of killing vehicles, which sorcery speed removal usually cannot do. But if you aren't that worried about vehicles, then paying 1 less black mana for Impale, it's functionally the same card as Impale, but slightly better because the mana cost is less restrictive. So keep an eye on Eviscerate. I don't think it's going to see a ton of play, but we have seen cards like this see fringe play, so keep an eye on it. All right, and I'm very excited about this card. This card was originally unofficially spoiled as an uncommon, but when the official spoiler came out, it was revealed to be a common, so it's going to be legal in Standard Pauper. Some good draw spells. I love me some good draw spells. So it's 3 and a black at instant speed, and you can look at your top 3 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, and the other 2 into your graveyard. Wait, what? Oh, and the other into your graveyard. This text is wrong. So the text on the card says, top 3 cards, put 2 into your hand, and the other in your graveyard. Dark Bargain deals 2 damage to you, right? So dealing 2 damage to yourself is a little bit of a drawback, but this is a pretty powerful draw effect for black. Usually black has to pay life if it wants to draw cards, but this is a very solid one. And the fact that it's an instant means that the blue-black control decks can get redundancy on their draw spells, right? They're already playing Hieroglyphic Illumination on 4, which is just 4 mana instant, draw 2 cards, or you can pay 1 blue to cycle it. And if they want to play more instant speed draw spells, this is probably going to be the next best one. It gives you a fair amount of selection. Sometimes the card going to your graveyard will matter, and it digs deep. So this card is very solid. I hope that this card sees play. Dark Bargain. All right, moving on to red. Sheevan Fire. So 1 red instant. Sheevan Fire deals 2 damage to target creature, which is, that's great. We've seen Shock seen tons of play. Magma Spray sees tons of play. Sheevan Fire is going to probably see tons of play. And then you can pay the kicker, so an extra 4, so 5 total. If the spell was kicked, this deals 4 damage to that creature instead. So Shock can go to the face, right, or kill a creature. Magma Spray can only kill creatures, similar to Sheevan Fire, but you get the upside of exiling it, so it's good against those embalmed creatures. But Sheevan Fire gives you the flexibility of if you draw it later, you can kill a bigger creature. So it's unclear of if this is going to be better than Magma Spray or not. Shock, the aggro decks will still probably want to play Shock over this, but they might want to play Shock as well as 1 more instant speed removal spell. So Sheevan Fire, this is for sure going to be a staple of the format moving forward. All right, Run Amok for 1 red and a colorless. We have an instant. Target attacking creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample until end of turn. We have seen Brute Strength see a bunch of play, which is 1 red, 1 colorless for target creature gets +3/+1 and trample until end of turn. Brute Strength does have the upside of you can cast it on defense if you need to, where Run Amok you can only cast it on attacking creatures. But if your deck is kind of built to always be attacking, then Run Amok is going to be better than Brute Strength, right? Being able to have that extra 2 toughness boost means the creature is more likely to survive combat, and giving it +3 in the front and trample means that you're going to get in a bunch of damage, right? So this card is very similar to Built to Smash, but I think that between these two, the red aggressive decks are going to have a lot of different options. So Run Amok will very likely be one of the combat tricks that the red aggro decks should be considering. All right, moving on to green, we have a 1 mana instant speed trick. For 1 mana, 1 green mana, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That creature gains reach until end of turn. Now, We've seen Shed Weakness see a fair amount of play in the green aggro decks. This is a little less oomph than Shed Weakness, but the counter stays around permanently, where Shed Weakness gives +2/+2 temporarily. The reach might be relevant as well. There are a number of flying creatures in the format, so this fills a similar niche as Shed Weakness. It is slightly different, right? Less powerful up front, but more powerful over the longer run if the creature is going to survive the combat that you're casting this in. So keep an eye on Arbor Armament, just another option for your green aggro decks. Croson Druid. All right, this is a very good spell for any ramp decks that, we saw some ramp decks have some success. I think the last time we saw it was in the two-headed giant format, which, arguably in a format like that, you can have a little more liberty with taking your time to cast big spells. But this card is perfect for a ramp deck. If you need to play it early, you can pay 3 mana to get a 2/3, which is completely fine. But if you draw it late, by the time you have, let's see, 5 to kick it, 3 to cast it, you need 8 mana. But when you play it, you get the 2/3 body, and you gain 10 life, right? So ramp decks usually fall behind early because they're trying to spend their early turns playing ramp spells. But then in the late game, they kind of try to take over by playing big fat creatures. This kind of solves both of the problems of the ramp decks, right? If you need to, you can just throw it down. It's a 2/3 blocker. It's a solid body, and then once you get to the late game, if your big fat creatures aren't enough, let's say if they have some flyers or evasive creatures, you can just throw this down instead of a big fat creature, and then you gain back that life, start crawling your way back into the game. So this guy might enable some ramp strategies to, emerge in the format. So I'm gonna keep my eye on this one for sure. Yavimaya Shepherd. Here we have another creature that generates value. So a 1 green, 2 colorless, 2/2 creature. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. Again, we've seen a bunch of token generators in green. So there might be a green-white token deck. We saw a mono-white token deck last season. It was kind of fringe playable. Mr. Chris at the Washington Middle School Club was playing it against his students. Some of his students tried to pick it up. They said, it was fun to play, but it just didn't have the power that some of the other decks did. And I'm very curious to see if these additional green cards are going to help add a little bit of oomph that the deck needed. So Yavimaya Shepherd, very good in token decks, and just very solid in any other aggro deck, right? Spending 3 mana to get 3 power and 3 toughness on the board, even if it is spread out, is very solid, right? Jungleborn Pioneer does the same thing, right? Although I guess Jungleborn Pioneer, the creature does have hexproof, and it is a relevant creature type, but maybe the deck wants redundancy. We'll see. All right, Grow from the Ashes. This card is again, I said that ramp might emerge as a result of these new cards, and this might help the ramp decks as well. So a green and 2 colorless sorcery, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Important to note here is that the land does not come into play tapped. Most effects like this put the lands into play tapped, but this one does not. Okay, so you can pay 3 mana, get a 4th land, put it into play. If you have a 1-drop in your hand, you can cast it, right? Maybe shock. Maybe you want to put out a creature or something. If you're playing a ramp deck, then you might want to play Sheevan Fire, right? So Grow from the Ashes, solid turn 3 play, lets you not fall behind too much on tempo. And then if you have the extra 2 to pay for the kicker, then you get to search your library for 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield. Again, they don't come in tapped. So on 5, you can spend 5. On turn 5, you can spend 5 mana to play this, get 2 lands, they come into play untapped, and then cast a creature or cast a removal spell, right? So this card, if there is a ramp deck, it will definitely want to play this card. All right, moving on to white. I'm not sure how good this card is going to be, but if there is a token deck, then it's likely that the token deck will want to play this card. Spending 4 mana for 4 power and 4 toughness worth of creatures is a really good rate. And then if you have it spread out over 2 creatures, then your token payoffs get to take advantage of this. And the fact that they have vigilance is very solid. So 3 colorless and a white sorcery, put 2/2/2 white knight creature tokens with vigilance into play. If the white token deck sees play, which it's getting a bunch of tools here, it might want to be green white instead of mono white, but I'm looking forward to seeing if this deck becomes more competitive, and this card might help it in that regard. This card might help it as well. It's 1 white, instant, combat trick. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn, right? So very cheap rate. Inspired Charge was the payoff in the previous token decks, which was 2 white, 2 colorless. Creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. So for 3 mana cheaper, you're getting almost the same effect, a little less power in the front, but if you have enough tokens in play, then this card is going to be a great payoff. You probably want to have about 3 tokens in play for this card to be as good as other combat tricks, and if you have more tokens than that in play, then it's way better than most other combat tricks. So Charge, pretty much only good in the token decks, but great in those token decks. Alright, this card, I'm not sure if this will have a home, but there's just so much value attached to this card that I feel like I should mention it. So it's a 5 mana 3/5. Nothing special on stats. It's a good blocker. If you need to attack with it, you can. And then if you kick it, when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, you return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Again, I'm not sure what deck would want this, but if you can take advantage of this ability, then it's a very solid card. It's white does not get a lot of card advantage, and this is white card advantage. So keep your eye on this one. Not sure if where the home for this is going to be, but if you can take advantage of the ability, then it's possible that you'll want to play this card. Alright, and the last white card that we have here is Adamant Will, another combat trick. So 1 white, 1 colorless instant, target creature gets +2/+2 and gains indestructible until end of turn. So this card is going to be fighting for space with Mighty Leap. That has been the combat trick of choice in the white aggro decks that I have been building. So Mighty Leap is 1 white, 1 colorless, target creature gets instant, target creature gets +2/+2 and gains flying until end of turn, right? So you can use it in combat to save your creature, or you can use it before combat to give your creature flying and deal the last couple points of damage. I think for the aggro decks that the flying might be better, but indestructible is a very important strong keyword, so it's possible that this one will see some play, so keep your eye on this one. And I saved the best for last. This is the card I am most excited about. If you've been following the channel at all, you know that I think Hone Khopesh is one of the best cards in the format, and here we have a functional reprint of Hone Khopesh, but it has a different name. So you can play 4 Hone Khopesh and 4 of this card. So Short Sword is 1 colorless for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, and you pay 1 to equip it. So you can essentially play 4 Hone Khopesh and 4 Short Sword in your deck if you want to. And just max out on this equipment spell. Now, I don't know if you want to play that many equipment in all of your aggro decks, but if you want to play maybe 5 or maybe 6 copies of this effect, then you have that option, right? It's no longer just the Inventor's Goggle decks that get to play 8 very awesome equipment. Every aggro deck now has this option. So I think that this is probably going to be the biggest impact on the format because, as I said, Hone Khopesh is just such a great card. This card is exactly the same, but now you get to play more than 4 copies. So this is my vote for a card that's going to make the biggest impact on the format. So get your Short Swords while you can. Alright, so that's it for the cards that I'm going over for this format. Taking a step back, looking at the big picture of Standard Pauper, it seems like no deck is really going to change a whole ton. Maybe the white token deck will kind of be pushed to be a little bit more competitive, but the majority of the amazing and the ramp deck, got some pretty key tools as well. Kicker is just such a good ability for ramp. So those cards, or those two decks, might be pushed a little bit more towards competitive play, but for the most part, the cards that are gonna see play are gonna kind of slot into existing decks. There aren't really gonna be new archetypes that are gonna emerge as a result of this set, right? A lot of the big keywords in this set revolve around legendary creatures, which are not legal in Standard Pauper, or the wizard tribe got a little pushed, but all of the common cards are kind of worse versions of other cards. So, unfortunately, no real big new decks in this format, but it seems like a number of the existing decks are going to evolve, and then we might see the mono-white or the white-green token deck become more competitive. We might see the ramp deck become more competitive as well. So I'm very much looking forward to see how this format evolves with this new set. I'm going to be updating some of my decks, and let me know what you're most excited to play with. Let me know if you think I missed something, if any of these common cards you think are gonna see play that I didn't mention, and would love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget about our tournament, and I will catch you later. Peace.